welcome to Beyond the Kitchen, and welcome Deiric, designer here at Moylans. We'd just love to give the audience, our viewers, an insight to how the design process works with the kitchens that we do, the bedrooms, the media rooms. Tell us a little bit about your background. I know you've been with us 2 years. Where you come from, why you come to Moylans, what the experience is like at Moylans. Just giving the viewer a bit of an insight to how the design process works.
Grand, yeah, no problem. Well, basically, my background is in design. I'm a qualified designer. My degree is in design and innovation. I first started working with a contact lens manufacturer, of all people, in their drawing office, where everything was literally straight lines or curvy machine components, and just one extreme to the other. Over time, that's evolved into getting into small space design, manipulating spaces, turning 2 rooms into 3, creating mezzanines, that kind of thing. And over time, I just found myself going into kitchens, and kitchens really is just a natural follow-on, because of course you don't get much more small space manipulation trying to get the most out of a kitchen. And that, of course, when you're designing, it's not just the kitchen that you're looking at, or that I'm looking at. You've got the kitchen, whatever the rooms are around the kitchen, the corridor either side, was going out into the garden, the dining area, etc., and just understanding where the kitchen
all
fits.
Comes into play, doesn't it?
It really does, yeah, exactly. So over time then, I just found myself working in the kitchen area. I worked for a number of years here in Leon C with a company specialised in German kitchens, freelance for a number of years also, and then through that, actually just happened to come across, there was potentially an opening with Moylans. I've known Moylans for years, obviously here on the Broadway. It's a prominent site. Always had a good name, always see the signs around. Clearly one of the rivals I would have been working against in the past. Whenever people come in, it was always ourselves and Moylans and that kind of thing. So it seemed like an opportunity worth jumping at. And with the name, background, reputation, everything else, without trying to sell it, it was a very attractive option to come here. So the great thing about working here is just the fact that we've got so much flexibility in how we tackle a room. So it's not just, as I say to people, it's not just putting boxes in a room. It's not just a customer coming in or a client coming in and they putting up with what we have. Actually, we can create something to suit them. So no matter what words we write down on a form, there's always a nuance, and it's capturing the nuance. And I think that's one of our strengths.
Yeah, it's a good point actually, because we do 90% of our product is bespoke, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
I've always found over the years, depending on the product, the manufacturer, the supplier, if it's all standard sizes, you've got to work to those constraints. And I'm not going to mention any names, but there's plenty of kitchen companies out there. Everything's a set size.
Yeah.
You end up sometimes with big infill panels at the end of a run. But with majority of the product that we use, from a designer's point of view, if I've got this right, it's a lot easier, because that design is like exactly how you want in your own mind.
Exactly.
There's no corners cut. It's just a versatile product, and so that's the beauty of what we do, the bespoke side, isn't it?
It is. It answers a lot of questions that aren't even asked at the earlier stages, because we know that it isn't going to come up. It isn't going to come up as a barrier. No. There's a lot of things that we can do, that we do here in the company, that we can fill in a lot of gaps of unanswered questions, because we know we can, because we're getting the feel of what somebody wants when they come in. And so consequently, if something comes up that they're not 100% sure of, we know that actually there is a solution there somewhere that we can make, without having to say to the supplier, actually, we've encountered this situation. Do any of your suppliers do X, Y, and Z? We don't have to worry about any of that, because we can make it happen.
And it's nice also to have, the vast range of door finishes that we have. I mean, sometimes it makes our jobs a little bit more difficult, because the world is your oyster. You can have anything you like, any shape, any size, but the package that we offer is tailor-made, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly that. To the point that actually one of the very last questions I try to ask, or I try and keep it towards the end, is more talking about colours and finishes, because I'm more interested in how somebody wants a kitchen to feel. Because if I know how they want it to feel, then I can fill in a lot of gaps.
Yeah.
But for instance, even something like this display that's right behind you is one of my favorite ones, because it just shows a subtle little detail, how the grain from one side transferred to the grain on the other side, and it looks like one block rather than just, chopping and changing one piece. And it's that continuation or continuity. It's unique in the sense that rather than having lots of bitty things within a kitchen, actually there's a real subconscious continuity there. It just adds to the subconscious feel.
Good point, actually, with this particular one you're talking about. So a lot of wood grain kitchens, the grain doesn't follow from one door to the next to the next, and it can look really busy. But we basically at the factory, we take one big sheet material, and then we'll try and get 6 doors out of one board.
Yep.
So at least when you're looking at 6 doors, it looks like one piece of furniture, doesn't it?
It does. It looks like one piece. It looks deliberate. It looks like this was actually made for this space. And
that doesn't cost any more money from a manufacturing point of view. There's no extra cost involved in that. It's just because we are that smaller setup, and the factory is quite a small boutique kind of setup as well.
Yeah, exactly.
When you go to the big multiple branches, kitchen showrooms, is because that product is mass produced in volume. It's just impossible for them to do the kind of things that we do. So it's truly unique what we do. Not saying we're the only people in the country that do it. There are smaller kitchen companies that do something similar. But it sets us apart from, the major, what I call sheds.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this is it. And I mean, look, the sheds, they're there in the market. They achieve what they achieve and everything else. And they have their place. And everyone seems to have their own individual place in the market. That's not our market. It's not what we're working towards. No. But we can. What I like is the fact that we can actually create something unique for every single design that we go to, for every single design space. And that's a nice position to be in, because it just means that every single... Someone likened it to me recently, likened our process to me, that we actually kind of touch the homes of so many different people, but in a really positive way, because it's a unique space.
So going back to the design process, let's give the audience a sort of, anyone that's out there maybe thinking of doing a kitchen soon, or next 6 months, next year, whenever that may be. You start with a blank canvas. Okay.
Yep.
So you've emptied all those preconceived ideas. A small room, big room, medium-sized room, whatever it may be. What's your sort of process, your thought process that goes? Obviously, you've taken a brief from the client,
of course,
because there's certain things, elements that they want in the kitchen. X amount of ovens, 2 ovens, 3 ovens.
Exactly.
So you've taken that brief. Run us through your thought process, how you start creating your designs.
I'm very lucky, and as designers, we're very lucky in that we can see a space with a fresh pair of eyes. And regardless of whether somebody's moved in, a couple of months before, or they've been living there for many, many years, they're probably most likely going to see the space as they see it, or as it's presented. Whereas I can go in basically, and I can see what their objectives are, whether they're going to keep the existing walls, whatever the case may be. My plan, basically, how I start, is where they see the kitchen, wherever they see it's going to be, then it's those dimensioned walls that I actually put together. And that's my blank canvas, my constraint, if you like. But the blank canvas is what's within the existing walls. So that's my plan. I printed that off, and then I start scribbling what's going to work. I have a little list beside me of all the things that I need to fit into that space. Sometimes it's more challenging than others, as you can imagine. Sometimes it's a bit like a TARDIS. But the point being, the objective is I want to achieve that within that space, and I want it looking like this. And that's my journey, essentially. So we've got our list, we've got our end objective, and then the bit in the middle is the plan that I start scribbling in.
And then you take it to the next stage, which is producing, obviously in the software that we use, the kitchen design. That then the next process after it's designed in the software, it then does all the visuals, doesn't it?
Exactly. And one thing that's stunning as developed even in the last 12 months, it's developed phenomenally. I mean, something that as a company we take very seriously, and personally, even for my freelance days, it would have taken very seriously, is creating something that's photorealistic, or at the very least, how I describe it is just to take as much imagination or need for imagination away from anybody who's viewing a space, so they can picture themselves within that space. It's the finished article as much as possible. But God, in the last 12 months, the tech has just come on so much, to the point that even the other day, I showed somebody and she was just stunned, and she nudged her husband and said, God, that's our home. Can you see it? And it was phenomenal. That sort of thing is a real win. You get a real high from that sort of scenario, because essentially what I presented them was brand new design in their existing kitchen, created exactly what they were looking for. We were able to rejig the configuration of the room, but I was presenting it to them, not just a line drawing plan, not just a pretty 3D picture, not something weird where we're kind of hovering over the walls looking down on what the room looks like, but actually we're in the room with this beautifully presented 3D image that, to all intents and purposes, could have been taken from a camera. It's just immense.
It's amazing what we've got at our disposal now, technology wise, isn't it? AI has fed its way into our software, and it is, the results are amazing, aren't they?
They really are. I love it. I just love that finished article.
Can I ask, in the design process, it's at the end of the day, everyone's got X amount to spend on their project. Whether it's, a lesser, not so much lesser quality product, but the construction of the door is more cost effective to use the entry level doors to the high end doors. And it's always, we've got to create the design that's aspiring, but we've also got to design that with budget in mind, haven't we?
Exactly.
That's quite a challenge sometimes, because especially with social media these days, a lot of clients, see these beautiful, pretty pictures, but nothing's ever got a price tag on it, has it?
No, exactly.
You've got Pinterest, you've got Instagram, all the different platforms that are showcasing these amazing kitchens, and to the average person looking at those images hasn't got a clue what those sort of kitchens can cost.
No, there's no point of reference.
And then we sometimes find it not difficult, it's just holding the client's hand, because I've had a client in a couple of weeks ago, brought in this image of this kitchen. Straight away I've looked at it, I know who the manufacturer was just by looking at the image. It's one of the real high-end companies in the West End of London.
Gotcha.
And I'm looking at the image, and it's a 200 grand kitchen all day long. Now, I would never insult the client's intelligence or enthusiasm to say that's a 200 grand kitchen. But he's managing that process, isn't it? Because we could, honestly, over the years, with my experience, if you give me a sort of 4 metre square room, I can design that room to a budget of, say, 25k to 250k. And you've got to get somewhere. It's no good me showing somebody, wow, this amazing project. Let's say 100 grand for that kitchen, when they've got nowhere near that put aside for the project.
Exactly.
So that's why part of our process, yours and mine, is we need an indication, not an exact figure what they've got to spend, but we've got to keep it real, haven't we?
Realistically, it's not a trick. And I know, unfortunately, there are elements of the industry that have created a really bad reputation, and similarly with, other aspects of home improvements, where there's a thought or a school of thought where if you give a figure, that's it, you've given the game away. And so you give an unrealistic low figure, or you don't give a figure at all, or you refuse to say, I want to see what you come up with, so that everybody's competing for the position. But I can't do it blind.
No.
And it's just, I'm feeling my way in the dark, essentially, and I can create something absolutely stunning for 75 grand, when in reality, somebody has a budget half that, maybe even less, but for all the things they want to put in.
It's almost you've designed something that's beyond their reach.
Exactly, and that's unfair. That's unfair for various different reasons.
Well, it's unfair to the client and unfair to ourselves as well.
Exactly.
We're designing something spectacular, and it's not within their budget constraints.
No, this is it. So I find there's a couple of constraints, really. One is a lot of people don't know what they want to spend, or the other, what you alluded to earlier on, there's no point of reference. We all have cars, but if you're to say how much is the car, I was like, well, I don't know. It depends, and that's the point. It depends. It's the same with kitchens. It literally depends. I've likened kitchens in the past, getting a new kitchen, to essentially.
So going back to the car scenario, I think the public are a little bit more educated on the price of cars.
Sure, that's true.
You could say, right, I want to get a new car. Now, the average person in the street, they're not going to start looking at Ferraris because of the cost of the Ferrari. They're not going to look at Rolls Royce Bentleys or top of the range BMWs. You know, don't get me wrong, some people will, but you've got like I got a new car about 4 years ago. It wasn't brand new, but I knew, you know, I went for an Audi, and for me, Audi is middle of the road. It's good quality.
Yeah.
There was no point in me looking at a Bentley because I knew where Bentley sits. And with the kitchen industry, it's full of it's very visual, isn't it?
Yeah, it
From
is.
one supplier to another, and a lot of people buy on those visual aids like the social media. Oh, I like the look of that kitchen. Let's go to that company.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, I've seen this kitchen this week on Insta. Let's go to that company.
Yeah,
But
that's a really
in
good point.
reality, the prices of those two products that they've seen can be from one extreme to another. So I believe our industry hasn't done enough to educate people what the true cost of kitchens are.
Yeah, I think that's fair because, yeah, as you quite rightly say, okay, you can walk into a warehouse or one of the sheds or what have you, and they'll say this kitchen for that price tag. In reality, once you add everything into it, it's not that price tag, it's something else entirely.
That's misleading, isn't it?
It is misleading. And the thing is, you start off with a figure, you know, of whatever the figure is, and then in reality, it's at least a third more, or possibly half again, or whatever the case may be, you know.
Yeah.
And I think you're on something there, you know. It's difficult really to find that point of reference, but maybe I think as an industry we could do something with an average gauge.
Yeah.
And just, it's only ever going to be a gauge, but potentially there might be an avenue there, because the points of reference are skewed. There's very little, you know, this scenario here could easily be £12,000, or maybe it's £50,000, or maybe it's half, or maybe it's twice. And it's the unknowing. And this is why when I'm speaking to a client, and we have our first meeting, I'll say, look, I even open it up by just saying, you mightn't even know the answer to this question, but I need a gauge as to where you think you might be headed. And my biggest constraints are always the space and the amount of money to spend.
Yeah.
So, you know, I can do anything with anything. Just let me know where I am.
Yeah.
As simple as that. You know, sometimes I get an unrealistic target.
Yeah.
Which is fine, because it could be that they're just, you know, they're just trying to suss out, where am I in the market? How realistically could we produce something along those lines? Or it could just be that they don't know, which is fair, you know, because who does? When I was designing and building my own kitchen, I started off with a figure of 0 because, you know, we had an extension going on at the time.
Yeah.
So, and it was just literally, I pieced it together, and then it became obviously more than 0.
Yeah, that's a very good point, actually, because a lot of our clients that come into us, the majority of our kitchens are going into new extensions.
Yep, exactly.
Or, you know, the house is being knocked about, and the client it's a multi-trade project, isn't it?
Exactly.
And most of the time they engage with us first. So when the uncomfortable conversation around budgets, they genuinely don't know what they've got to spend on the kitchen because they hadn't had the price back in from the window company.
Correct.
Or the builder's costs, the flooring company. And I've had it so many times over the years. People have said, right, we've got 100 grand to spend on our new extension. And that's everything. That's all in, everything thrown in. That's the builder, the tiler, the plumber, the window company. And then they're coming into us first. And that's a difficult process to navigate around because they know they've got 100 grand spent, and then they get sort of guess figures in there. Well, hopefully the builder's going to be 40, the windows are going to be 10, a bit of this, you know, out of pocket expenses. We should have about 40 grand or 30 grand left to spend on the kitchen.
Yeah.
And those kind of clients come in and are honest and say, you know, we're doing this project, we're going to have about 30 grand left to do the kitchen. Is that something you can work with? And of course we can.
Yep.
So we do the designs, you know, we do the CGIs, prices, that's roughly where we need to be. And then over the coming weeks, the builder's quote comes in, the window quote comes in, and the budget has been eroded on all those costs, which are essential costs. We've only got like 15 grand left to spend on the kitchen.
Exactly.
So that happens from time to time, doesn't it?
It does. And do you know what? Actually, I mean, I know you use the figure of 100 grand. It's a good point of reference, but I think to a greater or lesser extent, a lot of people on their own individual project journeys experience something very similar. So suddenly all these leeways and these flexibilities all vanish, or they're plucking a figure out of the sky, because again, with building, there is no point of reference. Once upon a time, and it's gone back a few years ago now, I used to have a rough gauge of what I expected a building cost to be per square foot or per square meter or whatever. And that, although it wasn't down to the penny, it was a good gauge. So when somebody came into me and said, well, my project's going to be this is where I'm at. So, okay, well, if you do this, and this, it's going to cost you that, then that's going to cost that, and I could break it down really nicely. Costs have increased vastly over the last few years, even in particular. And so those points of reference, again, have skewed even for me. And so it's difficult to be able, because there was a time 100 grand would bill you something vast. Whereas,
I mean, I've used that figure, sort of just picked that out of the sky, because nowadays things are just, getting out of control with what's going on in the world. We're getting notifications every week from suppliers to utility companies, rates, council tax, everything's on the up. But I remember I'd done my own extension, and I got it all designed and priced literally pre-COVID, 6 months before COVID hit.
Wow.
So I was going through the motions, and everything got put on hold. I mean, the building didn't even start, but COVID came. Boris Johnson shut the country down, and I thought, okay, fair enough. We'll just have to revisit this when, we're through COVID. Then we went through COVID, and I think I picked the project up about 6 to 8 months after. I said, right, we want to get going with this. But by that point, the builder said, well, I've got to requote it. The door company got to requote it. Well, you've given me a quote already, but because of the effects of COVID, so my quote just for the extension was about £80,000 pre-COVID. Guess what the figure was after?
Oh, it must be
115.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
That's a big jump.
Yeah, that's massive.
In such a short space of time.
Yep.
And then that was a curveball thrown at me, because I was also going to do other areas in the house. I was going to convert a front room into a man cave. I was going to do a utility room. So all my lovely plans got thrown out, and the budget all went on the kitchen. And eventually I got around to doing the man cave and the utility room, but that was much longer, longer time to do that.
Yeah, and you know what? It's interesting you describing that, because that's a journey that a lot of people go on. And then when they come into the space here to have a conversation, not everyone realizes that actually we've kind of been through that process ourselves. So there is an empathy there. We literally have a point of reference on it. So we know what they're going through. It's not just another person coming in for a brand new kitchen or a brand new cupboard or what have you. We actually know the pain that they're going through as well.
It's interesting you say that about the empathy, because when I had my extension done, and people, once they've come in and we've got all the boxes ticked and they want to go ahead, and then they asked about the processes, how long we'd be without the kitchen, and and I just totally honest with people, because I lived through that. And it is sometimes can be painful. We started our project, and the builder, we tried to keep our existing kitchen intact for as long as possible. And we got to a point 2 months into the project, the builder said, right, your kitchen's got to come out now, because it's stopping our progress. No, please don't. So anyway, ripped it out, and then he sort of converted our front room into put a sort of stud wall in there to cordon off. It was most probably 10 foot square room. And that, for the next 3 months, became our living room, our dining room, and our kitchen. It was tiny. At first, it was a novelty. It felt like we was camping again, that kind of thing. But honestly, after about 2 or 3 weeks, we bought an air fryer, we had a slow cooker and a toaster, and it was a nightmare, because that went on for about 3 months until we could get back into the new extension.
I can imagine.
So when people, tell us of their experience, we have lived it, haven't we?
Exactly.
Because you had an extension done as well, didn't you?
We had our extension done. The extension, of course, the cost started here, and then they became that. unforeseen things happened. Something weird happened to the heating. We lost that within a couple of weeks. Brilliant. So that was another thing. So we ended up 2 bathrooms and a heating system in addition to the little extension that we were building as well, just to make the living space. Essentially, I reconfigured the ground floor, which was grand. That worked really nice. You have our family area in the back, and that's lovely. But all the unknowns stacked up against me, just like they stack up against anybody who's engaged in their own project. So consequently, the timelines skew. The costs escalate. You're thinking, all right, do we really need windows? We could just have open air. But apparently that's not acceptable. So, we carry on. But yeah, so I mean, look, we when people are telling us that they're going through it, when people are on the phone to us saying, why is this happening? It's just, well, this has to happen for that to happen, and there is a chain reaction of events. We're not just reciting a script, we actually know it because we've lived through that process and lived through it many times with many clients as well as our own. It's funny.
But it is a process, isn't it? But the aim and the main goal is to create that space that's going to be there forever.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, and this is something that I can't emphasize
no
enough.
pain, no gain.
This is it. One of the things I try and emphasize with people is the fact that we're trying to create a space for them. We are creating a space for them. The objective is it's really important that this is what they want, rather than us trying to push something on them, because there's lots of decisions that have to be made down the process and throughout the whole process. And so it's very, very important that we're not telling them to have a thing just because that's very popular for the time. It's really important something's going to work for them. Not today, not next year, and not in a couple of years' time, but actually several years down the road when they're still getting value out of that space. And this is hence the need for how's the kitchen going to feel? What do you want to achieve from this? Also, are you going to be there for a long time? Because that's a question.
I get a lot of satisfaction from is when clients, so we've done the kitchen 6, 7, 10 years ago even. And I've said before on other podcasts, a lot of our customers become friends, and they'll pop in, walking past the shop, pop in, have a cup of tea, because you build quite a good relationship with most of our customers. And when the customer says, Neil, our kitchen still looks as good as the day you put it in. Every time we come home, we're sort of not as excited anymore from the day one, but we just absolutely love our kitchen. And it's sort of a bit of it's a reward for me hearing that from clients.
Of course it is.
Because our kitchens at the end of the day, the longevity, the quality, the build, they're going to last 15, 20 years all day long, and maybe more.
They're in for the long haul. I sometimes describe them almost as being as permanent as, like your hall door, or the internal doors in a house. Yes, you can change them, of course, but if you don't need to, then you don't need to. And so the objective really is not just to follow a trend with a design. There's some interesting bits to carry over from one period to another, but actually it's just to have a certain timeless quality. So that actually what you described there is, there's the wow factor. Perhaps it wears off when you're living in the space all the time. But I said to a client recently, I said, I want that wow factor to retain in their new design. And long after they've become used to the space, I still want people to come into their home, and the first thing they see in that living space is, oh, wow, look at this. Even if it's several years old, I still want that effect.
Interesting. It not only looks good, it works well. That's another important thing about the kitchen design, isn't it?
It is.
The ovens are in that place, the hobs there, the sink, the refrigeration. It just all works. And we've just made our life a lot easier.
That makes a massive difference, because I know there was always... And to a certain extent, still, to some people, it still is. There's always this emphasis on the triangle type situation. And I know there's some of the larger sheds will say, oh, your triangle must be intact because you need this, this, and this. Whereas, we've moved on from that years ago. Your triangle could be a straight line now, as long as the zones are correct. And that's literally it. It's just clustering the different activities so they all make sense in the space that they're in. And that's what actually works. And that's what achieves the flow within the space.
You're more customer facing than I am. You're with... new clients all the time. Let's talk about what's new at the moment, what's trendy, what's going out. Let's give the viewer what's in.
That's a really interesting one. So I mean, for a long time you had your traditional dark blue kitchen, which stood a test for a period of time. You had your grey straight line kitchen, which also, ran for a period of time and what have you. One one thing I try and avoid personally as a designer, I try and avoid the trends as much as we can. Now, there's some things that look really good, and playing around with different features, etc. But ultimately, I find what's really important within the kitchen space is the least amount of maintenance that you need to carry out within that space. Obviously, not on an appliance. Obviously, not on the the mechanisms and etc. But what I'm thinking is, your work surfaces, they have to last a long time and put up all sorts of things that you would never have designed into the factor. Your walls are going to be dominating the space. It's really important they look right and everything else. So I'm a big fan of, if you like, texturing up different textures for different spaces. It does a few things, but basically it helps enhance the longevity of a space, because that's my thought process. I have several unanswered questions in my head as I meet somebody for the first time, and they're silent questions. They're in my mind, and I'm just trying to steer in a direction. But one of the things is, how do you want this to be in several years' time? So moving away from from particular new niche things, I want that space for each individual to work to how they want it. So if they're big on cooking, lots of prep space, lots of storage space. Do they want an extra dishwasher? Because there's a real trend in that's a trend.
A lot of people having 2 dishwashers, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. And when that idea first presented itself a few years ago, I know people were kind of laughingly saying it to me, and I was like, yeah, I can see the logic in that. That makes sense. And over time, it still comes up now. And I say, do you know what? There was a time when that seemed like a ridiculous idea, but the way we use our houses.
Well, we live such busy lives, don't we?
Exactly.
I've not got 2, but I could quite easily live with 2.
So I could squeeze in another.
Because one dishwasher, it would be like a rotational. One acts as a cupboard. And one actually acts as a dishwasher.
It does.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And you're just, because you use those items in the dishwasher. We're only a family of 3, so forgive me, I'm not speaking for families of, with 4 children, but even as a family of 3, we use the same utensils, the same plates, the same cooking pots and pans, more or less every day. And so that gets loaded up, gets washed overnight, or sometimes we're rushing out the door in the morning. It might not get put on a wash. So, but if you had 2 dishwashers, one stays as a cupboard all day long, and then you take it out and...
It's true. You've got that rotation. And so the closest thing that I could say that I'm absolutely embracing in a trend setting would be that. I'm a really big fan of it. Things like styles and designs and what have you, they change over the years, but there's some things that would just suit an individual a lot more than others. So I don't want to, I try to avoid riding on that wave as much as possible. But definitely there is a real use, particularly for a busy household, particularly for a larger household, particularly if you go from a situation which is more and more common, where you have a couple living in a larger house that was the family house, and then they're descended upon at the weekends by all the children and their partners and various attachments and all the rest of it. It goes from being a 2-person house to a huge family house or a multi-layer family house overnight, and having that flexibility and the freedom and flexibility to use the space you want to.
What's on trend as, so to speak, the style of kitchen at the moment? Traditional, modern?
I feel it's traditional, but with modern
twists.
Yeah, modern twists. And those twists, they don't have to be anything outlandish, but for instance, down to something as simple as door handles, or the furniture handles, shall we say, that there is a real growing trend to use a super traditional kitchen, even in frame, even with fancy kind of, cornice and et cetera. And then it has something a little bolder, more, I won't say brutalist, but definitely more industrial. And I don't mean the industrial trend, I just mean they're quite industrial. So you've got these substantial handles that will be on kitchen furniture. In addition to that, you can match those handles with your light switches. With the furniture on the other doors in the property, with other items that are within the home.
Sort
of
feeds into
the
overall scheme.
Exactly. And again, it touches on what I mentioned earlier on, that subconscious continuity of the design makes a massive difference. But there's always a popular trend for traditional kitchens, falls off a little bit and then it comes back again, but it's the twist on it. It's just how it works.
It's funny how things, what goes around comes around. I remember most probably 20 or so years ago, the biggest selling kitchen that we done was solid walnut. Honestly, it was walking out the door, every kitchen more or less, one after the other, was walnut. And then it was, that lasted for about 2 or 3 years, and it's like somebody switched the light switch off. Bang, it gone.
Yeah.
No one was interested in walnut. And it's just started to make a resurgence again, walnut kitchens.
I've noticed that. It's crept in.
And it's also, I had a client in a couple of weeks ago, and they sort of put me on the spot. Because, I was talking about styles in the early design stages, and I said, what sort of, traditional, classic, modern. They said, we can leave it to you. What do you think is going to look best in our space? And it put me on the spot because I have my own personal favourites.
Yeah.
And I suppose the point I'm trying to make, they do trust our judgment.
Yes.
So this client said, look, we just want you to come up and treat it as if it was your own home. Mm-hmm. And I like modern, industrial, hardy type looking kitchens.
Yeah.
And we done the design. They saw those wonderful AI CGIs and they were blown away. And because the wife, although she didn't say this up front, mm-hmm. she said, in my mind, I thought traditional was going to suit the property more than any other style. But then when we produced the drawings, it showed her this modern industrial look. Still kept a few existing quirks that were in the existing design, certain lampshades it worked well with, not lampshades, the lights in the ceiling.
Of course, yeah.
And they was absolutely gobsmacked that we'd presented them the sort of modern modern industrial look, and that's what they signed up for. So
amazing. It's interesting. I think you've highlighted that really well, because there isn't a one size fits all, and I know there are plenty of companies in the country that trade on the one size fits all model, but actually there isn't, and it harks back to what we were saying at the beginning of the conversation.
Yeah. And do you remember just recently, sort of over the last 6 months, we've introduced another little process into our design structure, haven't we, as a team? So normally you'd be responsible for the design for that client that you've met.
Yeah.
But then we do the first draft and we send it out to review to the other designers. Yeah. There's 3 or 4 designers here, just in case, because sometimes, we're doing the same job day in, day out. Mm-hmm. Just fact check me. Like, I'll come to you, vice versa. I've come up with this scheme for Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so.
Yeah.
What do you think, Deiric? Although I'm really happy with my design, you run your eyes over and go, yeah, I like that. But what about this as an idea? And that, do you know what? Didn't think of that.
Yeah.
And that's working really well.
I think it is. It's always good to have another pair of eyes, at least another pair of eyes, if not a few pairs of eyes. Now, it's not a question of too many cooks.
No.
It's because you'll understand what the client wants, you'll understand what they need, or I will, whatever the case may be. If you're dealing with them face to face, you've already had all those conversations. But somebody who hasn't had that conversation, just like when we're removed from the day-to-day living in the home, we can see it in a different perspective. We'll then work on the design and everything else, but just to have other members of the team throw their eyes over it, and it's nice. Some things just aren't going to work because already the nuance is that's not going to work for that family, but it's great throwing it out there. And it's good to have I'd rather be in a situation where I can say, well, I don't think that'll work because knowing them, this is what the situation is, than having nothing, or getting locked in an echo chamber where I think all the boxes in my head are going tick, 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 when in reality, we forgot, what about the thing? Whatever the thing is. And you just need that extra voice to say it. It's a fantastic process.
Yeah.
What it means is we've got a team of people who are working on every single design here. And it's not just one person, or one person has an idea, then somebody else puts it together.
A friend of mine went to a kitchen, shall we call it, one of the big sheds.
Yeah.
This was going back 2 or 3 years ago now. And he had a design done. I won't mention the name of the company. And he gave him a really in-depth brief of what he was looking for, the style, and the design that came back was so rigid. I don't mean rigid as in assembly, but it was just a very basic, not very well thought out design.
Gotcha.
And when he said, it hasn't inspired me, is there something else you could possibly look at, mix it up a bit? And they said, no, that's what you pay for, our designs. And obviously, needless to say, he didn't do any business with them.
Yeah.
But that's, again, I'm not going to mention names, but a lot of these big sheds, the designers are most probably was a worker at Ford 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And now is all of a sudden a kitchen designer.
That's right.
And you don't get that personal service or experience when you go to these bigger outfits.
No, I couldn't agree more.
Than you do with, no, not just ourselves, other independents. You know, we've all been doing it a long, long time, haven't we?
Exactly. This is it. We've got years of experience between us. And it is that, it's a conversation. It's like we're having now.
Yeah.
And that's what I have with a client. I'm not trying to sell something because, you know, one of the problems with anybody engaged on a project is the fact that no matter where they go, they're being sold to straight away.
Yeah.
And that's a problem because you feel like, I know I do anyway, if I feel like I'm being sold to, I instantly shut down and then I just need to leave that conversation because it's not working for me. I just need to know the facts. I don't care whether it's brutal or whether it's harmonious. I just need to know the facts. Tell me the facts and then I can figure out what's going to work for me.
I'm a bit like you there.
Yeah.
I mean, I was on holiday somewhere recently and standing outside this shop, this beautiful men's clothes shop, and I'm looking through the window. And part of me's going, I really want to go in and try that jacket on. But I know the minute I walk through that front door, somebody's going to be over me.
Yeah.
And it puts me off.
Yeah.
Just a bit of human nature. Anyway, we was away for 2 weeks, and then I thought, no, I'm not going in there. So we went off, me and my wife, to this restaurant, and then we walked past that shop again the day after, and I kept seeing this jacket, and I thought, no, I'm not going in there. Towards the holiday, I went in there, and within seconds, I had 3 members of staff fighting for my business.
Wow.
This was in a foreign country where, you know, the staff most probably not paid that well, so they're paid on what they sell.
Yeah.
But it just made me so uncomfortable. I said, sorry, I'm out of here.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not surprised.
And I think that sort of comes out in a lot of, you know, even when I'm looking at cars, not that often, but when I do, if I go to a car showroom, I want to take the time. I want to know the facts.
Yep.
But that when people jump on you and are trying to sell you something, I just don't think there's anything worse, really,
No, I agree.
in that buying cycle, you know.
So like, just really thinking about projects in general and everything else, you know, harking back to yours, what was your favorite part of the outcome of your space?
The unveiling of the project.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, and because I lived through it, you know, you're seeing the progress day by day. And and this is what I do for a living, so I've got a very good idea what the outcome is going to be.
Yeah.
But there's nothing better than it's you know you've seen the light at the end of the tunnel. But for me, excuse me, I was looking forward to getting people out of my house because they'd been there for a long, long time.
Yeah,
you know, and we
it's a
all
familiar
like our
story.
own space. But I knew we were getting towards. We're on the home run, and for me, it's when the worktops went in.
Yeah.
Yeah, the worktops went in, the hob and the taps, and that all happens very quickly right at the end.
Yeah.
And then there was a big spring clean, everyone out of the house, and then you stand back on your own, or me and my wife, and went, wow, this is absolutely amazing. You know, that feeling, excitement. It's just, I can't believe it. We've actually done it. Yeah. You know what I mean? It was,
Exactly.
and it was a long, you know, drawn out affair with the extension, and it's, yeah, it was a lovely experience. The unveil, you know, knowing that I've got no one else to come back now.
Yeah.
This is our home.
Finished out.
Let's start living it again. You know, because your life is put on hold for a bit.
Oh, it really is.
So that was a big thing for me. But that's also, you know, Deiric, when we focus a lot about design and how we, you know, manage the design process. But it doesn't stop there, does it? So a client says, yeah, we love everything, the price is right, we now want to go ahead. What's the next steps?
Yeah.
And from the moment the client says they want to go ahead with Moylans to the end of the project, that could be anything from 6 weeks to 12 weeks, and in some cases longer, depending on the builder's program.
Exactly.
Works.
That's right.
So we are living that journey with the client, but we do hold their hands. It's not just about pretty design, there's a price, thank you very much. There's a lot of work that goes on after that stage, isn't there?
I think this is the point that needs emphasizing. It's not just the design. It's not just that initial process, because once everyone's happy with the lovely design and everything else, which is what the ultimate objective is, that's when the work starts in many respects. That's where the company work starts, because actually
it's the engine room kicks in.
Yeah, well, this is it. That's something has to happen to trigger all those things, and it's a project at the end of the day. So it's not just a question of that's grand, your kitchen will arrive, then we've got nothing more to deal with. But
So
actually,
to give the viewer a bit of a better understanding of how that side of things works, so we call it, so the client's on board, there's a few sort of meetings, just signing off final finishes, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then everything swings into action, is resurveyed. We prepare drawings for the client's electrician, their plumber, their heating engineer. We distribute all those drawings, and whilst that work's going on, our order goes off to the factory, where everything is cut list, production schedules. Because we're not a volume manufacturer, every kitchen is made uniquely for that individual client. It's not like we go to a warehouse where there's 1,000 shelves of base units, wall units, and we just pick one off at a time and put it on the lorry. It doesn't work that way. Every kitchen is made from scratch for that client. That process in itself, the production cycle can take, depending on the range, some take 6 weeks, some take 10 weeks. But a lot of that is noise, and the client's not interested in. They're looking forward to the date of when it's going to start.
Yeah, exactly.
Point I'm trying to make, there is a lot going on in the background.
There's a lot of unseen work. There's a lot of background work. Ultimately, what all we want to do is to make sure that kitchen goes in, and it's in, and that's that. That's really it. Bar the odd tweaky thing here and there. That's why we prepare all this work prior to installation. So the stress happens then, rather than on site during the installation.
And the average installation takes most probably, again, how long's a piece of string? But the majority of kitchens, the joinery side, the fitting of the units is about a week. Sometimes might go on a bit longer. But then, and I think I've mentioned this in previous podcasts, you get a bit of downtime where the worktop people come in, make the templates, fit the worktops. That could be another week or two. But I've been around so many clients' houses when the worktops go in, and again, that big reveal.
Well, that's your framing, isn't it?
Yeah. Suddenly, seeing the excitement on their face is it's quite rewarding. But it's also at the very end of the job, what I like to do, and it doesn't happen on every single job because I can't be here, there and everywhere at the same time, but I try and go around every job when the installations is finished, make sure that client is happy with all the staff that have been involved, from the designer to the install team. And the feedback we get is phenomenal.
It's lovely, actually. And what I like about it is just the fact that we've got different people who can deliver different things in the process. And that sort of thing really makes a difference. It really helps ensure that we're actually delivering it. And that's what contributes really to the feedback that we get, I think.
And all that really is a testament to us doing the right thing. As I've said before, we've been here 27 years. We're doing something right. Majority of our clients are referrals. So it's quite rewarding knowing that, because there's a lot of hard work goes on in the background that the customer doesn't see. And I'm not trying to justify what we do in the background, but there is a lot of work, and it's so rewarding that the client expresses how pleased they are with the kitchen. And like I said a little while ago, it's not uncommon for clients that we've done their kitchen 5 years ago, 10 years ago. They'll pop their head in, say hello, and even some clients built really good relationships with, become very good friends with. So
exactly, this is it, because at the end of the day, there is a relationship there. You've got to, you're not just selling a thing. You're actually creating something that's going to impact their lives every single day for a long time. So to get that positive feedback is immense, because they haven't forgotten you, they haven't forgotten us, kind of thing, because they're living in that situation.
Thanks, Deiric. I think that now brings us to the end of this episode of Beyond the Kitchen. It's been a pleasure having you on, sharing your experience of what goes on behind the scenes with the design side of things. It's been really great, and if the viewer would like to see more content, please like and subscribe. If you've got any questions regarding today's episode, please leave your comments below.